by himself. My mother abandoned us when I was about 5 years old. My dad, like you, Deacon, worked at the post office for over 30 years. You know, I asked my dad once, I said, "Dad, why'd you stay at the post office for so long?" And you know what he said to me? He said, "Son, I was so glad to have a job, I thought I better keep it." Boy, times have changed, haven't they? You know, most of the time, people get up here and talk about themselves. I kind of just get up here and try to feel the atmosphere and say what's on my mind. I want to tell you about my dad. My dad raised me by himself. I had a little brother who was terminally handicapped. He lived to be 18. No mom around. And boy, did my dad set the right example for me. I bet you that he and Deacon Montgomery have more in common than just working at the post office. He worked me to death. He about killed me working me to death, I'll tell you that. My friends felt sorry for me because he worked me so hard. But I want to tell you something that he did that I think just says the kind of man that he is. My high school football coach, and Madam President knows and knew Coach Rudy Roll from Tavares High School. He lived in Eustis. He was my head football coach at Tavares High School. The first black coach after we integrated at a white school, and then an integrated school. Coach Roll told me once out on the football field, see, now my name is Connor, but he said, "Connors?" He always called me Connors. He said, "Did you know that your house is the only white house that I've been to eat dinner?" You see, that's the kind of man my dad was. Now, what Coach Roll didn't tell me was that I saw with my own eyes. He said, he could have said, "Connors, your house is the only house that I come to have dinner and drink martinis with your father." But Coach Roll passed 6 years ago. November will be 6 years ago. And he was one of the greatest influences in my life. You know, he might have thought that it was, you know, a blessing to be at our table at the time. Let me tell you something. You know, 45 years later, the man continues to bless my life. And I love him so much, and I still talk to Miss Roll every now and then. We were poor. I want you to look at this flyer. It's the one with the real good-looking man on it. Now, actually, I said if you don't like the man on it, my wife and my dog are really good-looking, actually. But I didn't live in air conditioning until I was 21 years old. My dad was in his 40s before he lived in air conditioning. But I want you to look at a picture of that house that I grew up in. And that tells you a lot about me. But you know what I learned? I used to be ashamed of that house. But now I'm proud of it. And you know what I learned? It's not what's on the outside of the house that's important. You know what we had? We had God and love. And that's what we had.
I can't see over. Probably the shortest candidate. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking I should have brought my stool. But thank you, Sonia, President Jones, Pastors Montgomery, or Deacon Montgomery, and Pastors Walker and Wilson for having us all here today. It's wonderful that you've come out to get to know your candidates, and we really appreciate that. Well, I'm Wendy Breeden, and I'm running for County Commissioner, District 3. And I was born and raised in Leesburg, went to Leesburg High School, I have a master's in library science and helped build a library system that includes your libraries down here in South Lake, Cooper Memorial Library, the Marion Basinger Library, and the Four Corners Library, Kagan's Crossing. And I'm very proud of those accomplishments. Of course, I couldn't have done it without the commissioners, but I worked hard to implement that program. And I retired in January because I'd like to turn the page to a better Lake County. Get that library reference, turn the page. So. Anyway, we do need to start that by trying to reduce the overall tax burden for everyone. And that means we're going to have to look at everything and put everything on the table. And I think we can start that with zero-based budgeting, because your county commissioners have a moral responsibility to spend every one of your tax dollars wisely. Now, I believe that fresh ideas and new approaches are good for local government, and because of that, I support term limits. And I personally pledge to serve no more than 8 years. I'm not a politician, and I'm not going to be a career politician. Now, business and economic development require at their foundation stability. And for Lake County to truly thrive, we need a level playing field. The same rules for everyone, not different rules for a politically connected few. And we need to look at our regulations again, and this time through a lens of common sense. And we need to get rid of any burdensome regulations that we can. I grew up in a family with a small business, and I know that it's hard to open a small business, and it takes a lot of sweat equity, a lot of hard work, and we need to be there for those small businesses and help them succeed, and to attract new businesses in. Now, Lake County already has a great quality of life, from our parks and libraries to even to our fire services and sheriff. And I'll continue to support Lake County's quality of life, because I truly believe that we can be fiscally conservative and responsible and have pro-business policies and still protect the unique quality of life that is Lake County. Now, for 23 years, I worked for county government, always in leadership positions, first as Library Services Director, and then as Public Resources Director over parks and libraries. And I had a ringside seat to the inner workings of Lake County. And to me, what needs to change is the culture of Lake County. And we need to restore Lake County's true values of professionalism, honesty, respect, and civility. And we need to keep our word when we give it, do not change it if it's politically convenient. And when we disagree, and we all disagree at some point, we need to disagree with respect for each other, always. I think some in local government have forgotten those values, and I think they need to change. And so, I hope you will help me turn the page for Better Lake County and vote Wendy Breeden on August 30th. Thank you.
Wendy, I think you did a really good job of expressing to us your platform and the things you want to see moving forward. Here in front of this audience and the folks that are hosting you, seeing that one of the candidates in the City County Commissioners here, we'd like you to share with us what sets you apart, what makes you different from the man that's in office or the candidate that's running for the same office with you.
Well, as I said, I worked in county government for 23 years in libraries. I know how to establish a vision, and I know how to work through that vision. It took me a long time to get the library system where it is, and it took a lot. I know how to work with partners and forge partnerships, work with commissioners, always being respectful. When you have a vision, when you have a dream, you never give up. If things don't work out one year, you keep going back year after year until you reach the goals that you think are important. I have a proven history of leading with respect for others and professionalism, and I think I have an excellent temperament to work with the county commission. I also worked with budgets over the years, faced a lot of tough budgets, had to be creative, have new and fresh ideas, and be able to find ways to be more efficient, cut our budget, and still provide excellent service to the public.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Connor, we have to, I was about to say Commissioner Connors. Commissioner Connor, we need to ask you the same question. What sets you apart from the other candidates? Why should we send you back to the Lake County Board of Commissioners?
Well, that's up to you. But I want to tell you something that's real important to me this past year and next year. I want to say that Mayor Laux, you got a lot of guts, because to try to exonerate the Groveland Four may not be popular with a lot of people. But you want me to tell you something? I could tell you more about my dad and about my upbringing. I'm just going to tell you, know what you see is what you get. Now, I shouldn't say this because it might get me in trouble, but you know what? I don't care. When I was a kid in Lake County, if you were black and you were charged, you were guilty. And it was wrong. I saw it. I saw it. I saw it closer up than you know because of some people that I knew. And it was wrong. And I'm telling you, our commission has already said that we are making the exoneration of the Groveland Four part of our legislative platform next year. We, at my suggestion, we have lobbyists. They're more powerful in Tallahassee than we are. Our lobbyists are going to take the charge from us and help get this exoneration at the state level. And I just want to close with this. There's been a lot of discussion today about everybody voting. Well, everybody doesn't get to vote in my race, only Republicans. Why? I'm not criticizing this. I'm just making it as a statement of fact. 23 minutes after my opponent walked into the supervisor of elections office, someone who works at her brother's company, a company that she is financially affiliated in, went and became a write-in candidate. He's not here today. I couldn't pick him out of anywhere, but guess what? If you're a Democrat and you're an independent, you can't vote. But my opponent didn't know anything about it.
Thank you very much. Thanks to both of you. Folks, Commissioner Connor wanted to let you know that he did rearrange some things to be here with us today, and so he does have to leave. So let's give him a round of applause for that. Boy, that debate is imminent, isn't it? I know everyone wanted to ask so many more questions. We do appreciate the candidates that are here today, and we appreciate them sharing their words and thoughts with us. And I can assure you that there will be another platform for us candidates to share more and talk more and let the folks know more of what we're doing. Thank you very much to our candidates that we have here on stage. Pastor Chris Walker. Oh, all right. All right. Pastor Chris Walker, you can take the microphone and he's going to ask questions of our candidates here. Thank you both for being here.
These are our candidates for County Commission District 5. Clap your hands and just welcome them here this afternoon. So we're going to start with, I don't really know anybody's name up here, so we'll start with
I'm Welton Cadwell. I'm currently your District 5 County Commissioner and have been for 24 years. And so when it comes to term limits, I think at least 30 would be good. But I do appreciate the fact that you've given me the ability to serve as long as I have. And not a day goes by that I don't understand that the only reason I'm able to do that is because you've allowed me to do it. My wife and I were both born here. We raised 4 kids, now 6 grandkids. We're all graduates, and hopefully the grandkids are going to be graduates of Umatilla High School and move on to higher education. But I just want you to know that I've always tried to treat people right, and I've always tried to bring a common sense, level-headed approach to the job. I've served with a lot of different boards over the years, and the makeups are always different. And I've always been able to rise to a leadership position in any organization I've been in. And I just think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. Every organization I represent Lake County, and I'm there to protect our home rule power. And that's what my job is. And I just want you to know I appreciate it. I'll be glad to answer the questions, but I do want to continue to be your county commissioner. Since 1992, the voter guide that the NAACP puts out, my name's always been on it. And I want it to be that way this time too. Thank you.
I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I had the opportunity to move anywhere I wanted. I chose Umatilla. I've had the opportunity to be a high school substitute teacher at Umatilla High School for about 15 years. I was a varsity coach. I had the opportunity to coach and teach some fabulous young people. One thing I told them, and I can relate to You're Losing Your Way in the national anthem, was the hardest thing you can do is get up in front of a group of people. The 3 things I think that are important to this race are term limits. We installed them in the city of Umatilla, made them 12 years. So the current county commissioner would have been termed out in his own city twice. I was told we couldn't get it done. Overwhelmingly, it did pass. I think everyone in this county should have the opportunity to vote on term limits. I wish we could get the congressman up in Washington to agree to that also. It was never intended, at least what I remember learning in history in Miami, for someone to be elected and to stay in the office until they couldn't walk, couldn't push a button.
All right.
And I'm not saying that Mr. Cadwell is anywhere close to that. He's very vibrant. I've known the gentleman since the day I moved into Umatilla and have enjoyed his friendship all that time. I just think there's other people in District 5 who should have the opportunity to look at the issues. I think our impact fees are substantially high. I think they need to be corrected. I had the opportunity to sit on that impact fee committee, and the recommendation we made to the county commission was 82%. They didn't believe in that. They went to 100%. I had the opportunity to sit on the solid waste committee. Now our garbage is going to a different county. There are issues that need to be talked about, corrected. We need to watch our water. We're called Lake County for a reason. Let's hope it doesn't dry up or that we don't start drinking salt. I have tried to make it a point of mine. I got in the race on March 30th. I'm the only candidate who got the petition signed in my district. What a challenge that was. 2,074 is a number I'll never forget. Your feet hurt. You talk to people who think you're a communist, because I'm the only Democrat that's on this state. And boy, did I hear about it. In a county that's full of Republicans, and I told every one of them, when you call me and you have an issue, I won't ask if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I'll ask, how can I help you? And I'll see it from the beginning until the end. And if I ask somebody to help me get that accomplished, I'll make sure that I contact them and find out where we are with that. Because that's what I do for 9 years on the City Council in Umatilla. I've been given the opportunity by those citizens to serve them as president 3 times, vice president twice, and mayor. And when somebody calls me, the first thing I say is, I'll get on it. And I make sure I get on it. We've done a lot of good things in Umatilla. If you haven't had the opportunity, please come up and see us. My name is Peter Tarby, and I ask for your vote.
I want to ask Mr. Tarby. Everybody has a passion that really drives them to want to do something. What is it that's driving you to get into this race to seek this position?
I'm glad you used that word passion, because in order to serve, you have to have a passion. As a teacher, I had that passion to see people succeed. As a varsity coach, the same passion. See somebody who didn't think they could do something, do it. There's a lot of people in our county who are not involved in the process. I've gone to every city council meeting except a couple in our municipalities. I didn't have to be noticed. I sat in the back and just listened, because I have a passion to know what's going on in each of our cities. That's part of the responsibility of county commissioners. You're not just the leader of the unincorporated area. You're the leader of the cities also. You're there to help if you can. There's a lot of things we can't do. I know that sitting in Umatilla. There's a lot of things I can't do for you. But if there's something I can do, by golly, I want to be there to do that. And so that's the passion I feel. And that's the reason I'm running, is to try and fill that void that I believe exists in this county. Thank you.
This next question is for Commissioner Caldwell. What do you believe, what unfinished business that you believe you have still not accomplished that you would like to return to accomplish?
We've got a couple of things going right now that have been important to me. I was the commission liaison to the Parks and Rec Committee when we created a master plan for our Parks Department. We've initiated that plan now. The biggest missing piece is here in South Lake. We finally have the property squared away. We're moving forward with that. I think that is one of the top things. The other is we've just now entered into what I call closest response agreements with our cities. Our cities work with us really well, that when you need an ambulance or you need a fire truck, the closest one to you, no matter if you're a county resident or a city resident, are going to come. It's been a long time coming. I've pushed for that for 5 or 6 years. We can try to do that. We finally got a formula that's working. We've got all but a couple of our cities have signed on. We've got that. We're also fixing to come into a time with the economy coming back up, with Wellness Way coming forward, with the Expressway coming to the north end, that we are going to have experienced leaders, because we're going to be under the same pressure of growth that we were back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I just believe that we need to have experienced people there. There's not a better job, and I apologize, Senator Hayes, I've told you before, there's not a more impactful job in government than the local branch, whether it's school board, whether it's county commissioner, whether it's a city council. When somebody calls me, they expect me to do something. You don't call Tallahassee or Washington when you don't get your garbage picked up. And you don't call them when you got, and I know you're glad of that. And you don't get it when you need your potholes fixed. And so it's just, every day I enjoy going to the office because I have opportunity to really help somebody.
And just one last question for each of you. What is the first thing that you would like to accomplish in the first month of your election?
I believe we have to readdress the impact fee issue. I also believe we have to take a hard look at homelessness in our county, something that I think needs a better look at. As a teacher, I remember talking and teaching some children who were living in the back of a car. And we can't afford to have that happen in our county, and I know there's some areas that I see homeless people, and we really need to address those things. I think those are some of the critical issues. And the budget that they're working on now will be something that the new commissioners will be having to live under. So we'll see how well they do. I know I'm in the budget process just like several of the other candidates are, and so those are always fun times because you get to go home and look at something 10 times. And so I'm doing that now with my budget, but there are some things that we need to address quickly.
The changes that are being made with our affordable housing rules in Lake County, we're going to move forward with that in a brisk manner. Some of the rules that come down from Washington seem to be a hindrance, but we were able to work around that. While I certainly disagree with Mr. Darby about the education impact fees, I voted for those at 100%. I I said, if we don't have a trained workforce here, we can't get any companies to come there. I don't care how low your taxes are. We've got to have a trained workforce. And we're working with the school board and the technical center with the advanced manufacturing school. And so those are really the two pressing things. We'll be right back on. Thank you.
I'm going to ask that all of the candidates for school board please take a stand. All of the candidates for school board. Could group together to do the District 2 and District 4. And we're going to ask Ms. Paula Hoyton to come and ask the questions. So we'll go through first with school board members in District 2. If you can do your introductions and your background for us. We're going to ask Dr. Christy Burns to go first, please. Mr. Fernand Mitchell and Sandy Wells to follow.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dr. Burns, or just Christy Burns is fine. I'm a candidate for District 2, for school board, sorry, for District 2. As you already heard, I have a doctorate in biochemistry, and I achieved that doctorate at Georgia Tech. I'm a mother of 4 beautiful children, all of which will be educated in Lake County school system. I was born and raised right here in Lake County, and I was educated in Lake County, and I graduated from Eustis High School. You'll have to forgive me, I am not used to podiums. So, after I got my graduate degree at Georgia Tech, I did teach college level classes at Georgia Tech, and after that, I worked at DuPont for some time in a business unit in which it was really actually a lot of fun. We got to work in a business unit working on the decontamination of chemical warfare agents, which is the breakdown of chemical warfare agents. We weren't making them. And for military, so I got to work with sales and marketing and military generals and a whole wide group of people, which I think is a really fun, interesting aspect. But I also think that it's nice that I have both some teaching experience and some business experience. My platform in general is that I'm completely sick and tired of the Lake County School District wasting money. I go to school board meetings, I've been to school board meetings for 2 years, and we're wasting a ton of money. At the top, we have a bloated bureaucracy, and we need to take that money and put it into the classroom where we can best use the money so that our children can get the best education we can. I think that education really is the cornerstone of democracy. It's all of those wonderful cliches. I could tell you a million of them, but I really believe that a quality education is what's going to build our economy. I am a huge proponent for less Common Core tests. Our kids are being over-tested and under-educated. I had a 3rd grader who came to me and said, "Mommy, I want to learn something," because all he was learning was test prep. And so these are, we're talking about, in 3rd grade, we're talking about SAT-style tests that are given as early as 8 years old and all the way through high school. And the excessive amount of test prep is taking away from their educational time. And therefore, in elementary, they lose out on things like, in the lower elementary grades, they lose out on science and social studies and recess. In the higher grades, they lose out on their electives and vocational classes, which would be their electives as well. But those vocational classes can be a whole career path. And then So that leads me to my third point, which really is to make sure that we give them a well-rounded education, because every child deserves a rich, well-rounded education. I want that for my own children. I'm a mother. I desperately want my 4 children. I have a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 3-year-old twins. I want them to have a rich, well-rounded education from when they start school to when they leave to go. I personally hope my children go to college, but many children will be on a vocational track, and that's fantastic. Wherever they end up, I want those children to have a well-rounded education that includes social studies, science, the arts, and vocational studies. I, for one, loved horticulture and still do today. So even these can be just hobbies that they get. So those are that's my general platform. You can learn more about me at electdrburns.com. Trying to see if there's any, I think that's a general overview. So thank you very much, and feel free to ask me any questions.
Mr. Purnell Mitchell, please.
Good afternoon. I am a minister, so I'm very comfortable behind the pulpit. But also, with that, let me just introduce myself. I'm Purnell Mitchell. I'm a candidate for Lake County School Board District 2. That's the Leesburg, Fruitland Park, Later Lake area. But you would get an opportunity to vote on both school boards, school board races. My wife and I, we are business owners. I've been in Leesburg, Lake County for almost 30 years. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force, law enforcement officer, where I served 17 years with the Leesburg Police Department, 6 years as security service manager for Lake County Schools, and also served in the Department of Children and Family as a child protective investigator. Now let me say this, I can go on and on and on about Purnell Mitchell, but when I look at the purpose of this forum and why we are here and where we are in Lake County, so the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, do you really think that your mission is still relevant? Affirmative action, do you really think that we still need affirmative action? Well, look at the numbers. When we look at the numbers in Lake County, a couple of people have already mentioned it, never a minority elected to any countywide office. Never. Not even close. So also when we look at our students, when we look at the numbers of students that are being suspended, expelled, arrested on our campuses, the black male student is #1 in all of those areas. Then I become emotional. Because I know when we start talking about school to prison pipeline, it is full of African American males. So when we look at the number of students who are failing in our schools, it is the rising tide that floats the boat. So in every category, we'll see that it is the African American male who are failing, but only leading in the numbers where our kids are failing at. In the state of Florida, Florida is the 3rd leading state that puts more money into the Department of Correction. From 1994 to 2014, 245% increase in correction budget. 4 times the amount of money that was put into our schools budget. So then we look and we wonder if it's by design or what the situation is. But then when we're talking about moving our school district forward, we would never move Lake County School District forward until we begin to work with the low percentile. Until they become important to the Lake County School Board, then we would never move forward. And I don't want to come and paint a picture of gloom and doom, but I'm telling you, man, I am so excited to be standing here in this political forum where there's more people that look like me than I have in all other forums before. Many times I go to these political forums and it's me and the people who come with me are the people of color. So we have to do something right away if we're going to make a change in Lake County schools. Now, when we talk about improving our schools, Lake County has just received a grant for $2.38 million to redo the VOTEC. And now it's going to become, instead of vocational school, a vocational college. But if students cannot read already, if our students are failing even before they get to kindergarten, how many of you think that they will be qualified for vocational college if they can't qualify to get into vocational school? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and by no means am I playing a race card because of this audience, but we are highlighting the fact that until we begin to work with our minority students, we will not make Lake County better. So you hear about testing and recess and all these other things. Well, all of those are important. But if little Timmy cannot read, it doesn't matter what test you give him. It doesn't matter what assessment he has. So we got to make sure that our kids are getting the basic foundation so that we can move forward. I can go on and on and on. I hear that buzz. I'm the first one to get that buzz.
Good afternoon, and I appreciate being invited to this today, and I appreciate you all being so very patient because we've had a lot of candidates up here and a lot to be said, but I want to introduce myself to you. My name is Sandy Moore, and I am running for School Board District 2. I was born and raised in Lake County. I graduated from Leesburg High School, and I am the proud mom of 2 boys that are currently in the school system. I am currently the Executive Director for the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce, but my passion and every career that I've had has either been one that benefits children and then also our community. I worked for 10 years at a church in Fruitland Park as a children and youth minister there. I was a foster parent for 10 years. I worked for the Leesburg Partnership to work with, time's up, to really provide quality life for our community and to better our community. And that's the common theme for me, is that I love this community, I love our children, and I really want to make a difference in their lives. I'm running for school board because I think that all of our children deserve a quality education. And I think that it's extremely important that we, as a school board, that we have trust. And I have seen over the years that we have lost trust in our schools. Many of our parents tell me they feel like they're doing a disservice to their children by putting them in Lake County schools. And it's very sad to hear that, because as someone who grew up here, my parents were both teachers, my brother is a teacher, I have a lot of pride in this community, and I don't want to hear about anything that we're doing wrong. And so we are doing so many great things, but the one area that we really do need to focus on is our schools. And we need to get our schools back on track so that we can, again, attract more professionals and people to live here, businesses to come here. But all of that goes hand in hand with our schools. I feel like that I'm the right person for this job because I've already taken an active role in finding solutions. When we found out about the grades that came out in the Leesburg area, the District 2 area, a few years ago, we had 3 F schools in Leesburg, I leveraged my position at the Chamber to start an education committee to come alongside our principals. We meet monthly with principals, with community leaders, with community partners, parents, to really talk about a grassroots effort of helping our schools. We started a program for churches and businesses to adopt schools, to help with tutoring and mentoring, and also helping with funding for projects that aren't included in the budget. I started a program at the high school, for a leadership program, to help educate and take our already leaders that are in the high school all around Lake County and show them the awesome things that are here and the opportunities that are here for them, so that hopefully when they leave, whether they go, wherever they go, they find success back here in Lake County. Because I'm tired of seeing all of our people say, well, we can't find good jobs here. There's no success here, and leaving. I'm sure that there's a lot more. I'm one of the people, I look at a problem and I try to find a solution. I act on it. I don't just come up with ideas. I don't just talk about what we're going to do. I actually do it. And so I feel like that's what makes me the best person for this job. I have a vast understanding of what it is going to take. And it's not going to take just one thing. There's so many issues that we have. We have to look at this with a broad vision. And I hope that I can earn your vote on August 30th to be the next school board member for District 2. I saw her stand up. It made me very nervous at the end. I didn't want the bell to ring. Thank you very much.
Ms. Montgomery, you're going to need some more time.
No, and thank you to the members of District 2. We're going to ask you to remain on stage. And Sandy, I'm sorry that I had to let that buzzer go because Mr. Purnell, I've been trying to stop it right before, but since he's watching our time as well, we want to make sure you had every second that was owed to you.
You owe me some more time.
We're going to move right into District 4. Mr. James Myers, if you can take to the podium.
Thank you. And let me say that everyone who's been at Purnell has always been the first one to get the buzzer. This is not an anomaly. My name is James Myers. I'm running for school board of District 4, which is the Mount Laurel, Tavares, Absatuli, Alaha, Howie, that kind of area. But this is a countywide race, so everyone can choose both seats. I'd like to thank Ms. Montgomery, Ms. Jones, the NAACP for hosting the event. Thanks for having us here. To give you a quick background, my wife and I are both from Iowa. We've been in Lake County for 10 years. We both live and work in Lake County. I'm currently a real estate attorney with Bowen and Schroff in Eustis. My wife has been a teacher for Lake County School for 10 years, and she is the new assistant principal at Umatilla Elementary in the fall, so she'll be meeting Mr. Tarvey soon, I'm sure, as well. We have two children. Our daughter is going to be a freshman at Mount Laurel High School, which scares me, next week. And our son is a 7th grader at Mount Laurel Middle School. I'm here because I've got a few concerns. I'm concerned that the school district has kind of lost its focus on what the most important thing is, and that's the students. We're concerned about what our data looks like. We're concerned what our school grades look like. We're concerned with how our scores are. The first and last question of every board decision should be, is it in the best interest of the students? And right now we're not doing that. I'm also concerned with the overall quality of our schools. And I think misplacing our focus kind of feeds into that. So right now we are 44th out of 67 counties in terms of how we rate among the other counties in the state. Last year we were 41st, so we actually slipped 3 spots. But if you look back in the last 10 years, we averaged about 38th or 39th, which puts us below average for a 10-year period. I'm not happy with the status quo. We can do better, we should do better. Now I understand a lot of what happens has to do with what goes on in Tallahassee, what goes on in DC. However, there's some things that we can do at the local level to make a change. It starts for me with making sure we get the right person as our next superintendent. In my opinion, that is the most critical decision that whoever takes these 2 seats will face while they're in office. I'm also looking at the amount of resources we spend at our district office versus what we put in our classrooms. I agree with I believe Christy said, that we are spending too much of our money, too much of our resources at our district office in Tavares, when that same money and resources should be used in the classroom. But how are we going to do that? And it's something that actually Ms. Breeden touched on earlier, and it's something the school district needs to do as well, and it is called zero-based budgeting. You build a budget from the bottom up. You look at what your actual resources are and what your actual needs are, and you match them together. So you find out where the inefficiencies are, you trim there, and you put the resources where they need to go to make the impact. Now, while we're out at the campaign trail, people are always asking us, why are you running? I don't want to steal Ms. Montgomery's thunder if that's one of the questions coming up, but why are you running? Why do you want to be on the school board? Well, for me, it's pretty simple. I've cared about education my entire life. My mother was an elementary school teacher, later became a media specialist. My uncle was a superintendent. My aunt was a high school English teacher. If that wasn't enough, I married a teacher. By the patience, I probably would have been a teacher, but I know my limits. So I can't get away from this stuff. It's been around me my entire life. But at the same time, I can't get enough of it. I spend my free time doing what I can to get involved. I've been volunteering at Silver Springs Elementary since 2008. In 2011, they honored me by making me their school volunteer of the year. I've been on the Educational Foundation of Lake County Board since 2013, and there we give grants to teachers and schools throughout the county. I've been on School Advisory Council at Mount Laurel Middle School for the past 3 years. I've been a Take Stock in Children mentor to a Eustis High School. She's going to be a rising junior now. for the past 2 years. And I also did justice teaching volunteer at Silver Springs Elementary. And this is where I go into the classrooms twice a year, and I work with all the 5th graders, and I teach them about civics, which I think is lacking in our school system. Right now we have 1 semester of civics in 7th grade, and that's not enough. So I work with the kids in the fall, and we do mock trials. So I teach them about the judicial branch. In the spring, I would go through a mock legislative session where the kids get to play representatives, senators. They elect their own president, and then they try to pass laws for their classroom or for their school. And it's just fun to see the kids engage and see what they come up with. So that's a little bit about me. I look forward to some good discussion, and thank you again for having us.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having us here today. My name is Joan Rintelman. I'm a 43-year educator in public schools. I'm a strong advocate for a strong public school program. I was born and raised in a small town in northern Wisconsin that's very similar to Lake County. My father was a professional musician, and when I grew up, we had no people of color in our town, except for the people who came there to provide entertainment for the resorts. So I grew up believing that every person of color was a gifted and talented musician. That's not me. Because those were the only people of color that I saw. I went out into the world and found out that those wonderfully talented people were not always treated justly. And that broke my heart from the beginning when I first went away to college. I have taught at-risk students most of my life. I have been in classrooms where I was the only white face, so it's kind of the reverse of what Purnell was talking about because of the over-identification of children of color with behavioral and learning disabilities. I taught in basements because that's where most of my classes were put. I taught in rooms that are now condemned because that's where most of my classes were put. When I came to Lake County, I taught in Wisconsin for 32 years, and I taught in urban areas that had some very severe drug and alcohol problems. I was a drug and alcohol counselor at my middle school and coordinated the program there. I taught in very wealthy suburban areas, and I saw injustices there as well for families that were trying to be upwardly mobile, and they moved into these communities and they were not accepted, and they needed to move out because their children were not accepted at school. I saw that firsthand. I also taught in small towns that are very similar to the small towns here in Lake County. Many of the things that have been talked about so far are our issues, and one of them is the financial way that we are dealing with things at the school district and the overabundance of resources that are spent at the top. Zero-based budgeting is a wonderful concept, however, it doesn't work in school systems, and school districts have done research on this, and they have gone away from zero-based budgeting because 85% of school district monies are predetermined. They're predetermined with wages, with benefits. The other 15%, about 10% of that, is based on grants that you have to follow. It's based on federal monies that come for special needs students that have to be followed, which leaves you about 5% of the budget that can actually be used with zero-based budgeting, which would be a good start. But to solve the problems with that type of budgeting really isn't going to be that worthwhile. The one other thing I want to talk to you guys about, and again, Purnell mentioned this, this is a very select audience that we're talking to. And I have a passion for children of color. And I think it's because I get emotional about this, because I've seen them get knocked down time and time again. I've seen them not know what it's like to be successful. To them, being successful is a dream that they're never going to achieve. And it's so hard for them. And I can think of kids right here in Lake County that were so close to being successful, and it scared them. And then they would do something that would set them back. And they'd say, why? Why did I do that? And I'd say, I don't know, you were so close. And they'd say, I was afraid. I don't want that for our students. I want all students, regardless of where they live, and we all know that there's an inequity in Lake County depending on where you live and what your zip code is to what benefits you're going to have at your school. And I want that to change. All children are special. My kids used to say to me, Ms. Rintelman, why are you so hard on us? And I'd say, because the world is going to be really hard on you. And I want somebody that loves you to be hard on you first. So I kicked a lot of kids in the rear. I talked to a lot of parents who are afraid to come to school, and that's another problem we have to overcome. We have to make all parents feel welcome, regardless of what their education was, where they went to school, where they grew up, if they can read or write. We need to make them feel welcome in our schools. or we're never going to have the trust that we need to build this school system. Joan Rintelman, District 4, I appreciate your vote on August 30th. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience for being out here. I know you're probably all a little tired, and you've been tired of hearing us talk about all these things, but they're all very concerning. And you're going to hear us all talk about economic development, grades, poor salaries, and all that kind of stuff. My name is Lou Boigas, and I am a builder by trade. I'm used to fixing things, and making things happen. As a result of that, we need to fix our district. If we don't fix it, we're not going to prosper economically. The manufacturing center that they're spending all these millions of dollars on is going to sit there if we can identify what students are going to need to go in there at the right time to do that. We're also not going to attract the businesses that are going to employ those students and make them a productive member of our community. If you'd like to hear about my community service, it's on my website, it's in the handouts I put out there. I value your time, and I respect it, and I know you've put in here a long time. If you'd like to speak to me, my numbers are on there and my website. I would appreciate your vote on August 30th. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I do say thank you for allowing us to be here. This is not new to me. I am a pastor myself. I'm a bishop of our Church of God of Prophecy in Florida, or actually all over the world, but I pastor Tavares. But one of the things that I look at, and you've heard everyone has spoke so far on the school board, we're failing in our schools. Our grades are not good. Who do we blame? Well, they blame the teachers. Well, guess what? It's not the teachers' fault. The teachers are mandated on how they can or cannot instruct our students. And so these are things that have to change. Where do you start? Well, you start with the school board. The school board can make some changes on some things, and some things that their hands are tied on also. Also, we need to try to retain our highly qualified teachers, and we need to hire highly qualified teachers. But we can't do that with the present salary matrix that we have, because it does not look at that. So we need to look at, and I also, you look at my brochure, and if you don't have one, get one from me. And if you don't get one from me, you can go to Sandy Gamble, candidate for Lake County School Board on Facebook, and pull up this information also. But the thing is, I'm also a chairman of our local SEIU union, which is the support staff. And the thing is, we are not paying our employees, the ones that make the difference, the right salaries. What we are doing is we're paying our administrators way above other administrators all over the state of Florida. That needs to change. I would like to take some of that money that's there that has just hired some administration, like, you know, one statement was made by one candidate here not too long ago. We need to hire a coach for principals. If they can't be a principal, why are they in there? So why do they need a coach? If they didn't meet the job standards, why did you put them in there to start with? So I have a problem with that. And there's other things. This past Monday night, they approved $85,000 to have somebody come in to tell them how to handle their ESE funding. And after the meeting, I was talking with some of our candidates that are up here, and I said, you know, I think a tank of gas and a person's salary and buying them something to eat, going to another successful county, and finding out how they do things would be a whole lot cheaper than $85,000 a year to do this. We're wasting money at the county level. I'm not into portables. Just not too far from here, a couple blocks over here, is a school that's been there for years. It's had one new building built in the past years, actually past many years ago, over on that one wing. And then over you got Cypress Ridge over here. Oh yeah, they got some new portables over there, some more modern portables. And luckily they did get rooftops that went over the sidewalks there. But all portables that go in otherwise throughout the county they get sidewalks, but they don't get covered walkways. I'm into, let's build bricks and mortars at our schools and quit wasting our taxpayers' money of putting infrastructure in the ground just to go rip it out later. Putting portables in that are not safe in the inclement weather, that whenever the storms come and the winds come, that they've got to be moved into a real building. Let's put them in a real building to start with and quit wasting the money. I just like to look at something real quick, and I don't ask forgiveness for this, but because being a minister, I just have to do. I don't have a 2-year degree, I don't have a 4-year degree. I have 9 semester hours of college credit because I coached high school ball for more than 2 years, and to go further than that, you have to get 9 semester hours, and then you have to meet the other standards. I coached high school ball, I coached youth baseball, I coached youth football, I've coached and coached. Somebody said, you know, we need to call you coach. But you know, the thing is, I coached high school sports while I sat on city council for 8 years. One of those, I was mayor of Taveri City Council there. I was able to make all this happen. One thing is, if I'm elected, or once I'm elected, because I'm claiming it, I'm looking for 55%. You say, that's crazy. No, I have something, I don't have a degree of college, but I have a degree in neology. See, the thing that sometimes what is happening with our school and our government is, we're forgetting how we started years ago. We had people that believed in God and believed in moral values that were biblically standard. And that's what I believe in. I believe that we need to look at this. I just got something in 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, talks about that we look at this by one Spirit. We're all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. And you can go home and I tell my congregation, I print this out for them. I didn't have time to do it for you. Don't tell me my time's up yet, please. But the thing is, I'm looking at, we have problems in our lower percentile or quartile of getting them educated. We have parents that do not know how to teach our kids and help our kids do homework. I'm involved, and I want to be involved in communities that we can get people like you that can teach our parents how to help their children do their homework. If we're going to get our percentages up and our grades up, it's got to start at home as well as at the school. Thank you very much.
There's a thing out there about school option. What are your thoughts on school option? Knowing that nothing is fair, nothing is even, some schools are more funded, better funded. What would you do to implement if school option should become a choice? How would you implement it? And how would you work the system to ensure that all of our schools are equally funded so that regardless of where I want to send my child, I know that my child is going to have a quality education. We'll start in order of which
I'm just going to grab this. My grandpa was a preacher, and my uncle is, and I'm not, so I'm just not going to anyway, so I just want to say these tests are right now ours. So you have to take the grades with a grain of salt. Right now, by state mandate, we will fail 20%. 1 out of every 5 third graders will fail every single year this test. And of those 1 out of 5, about half of those, we will retain those. That's just percentages, and that's been going on for the last 8 years. Except for last year, which we actually got a waiver last year, and the county retained half of the kids because we were allowed to just retain based on what teachers thought, you know. So we trusted our teachers, our professionals that we hire to teach our children. We know that these tests, based on the based on the practice tests, we know that these tests are being given about 2 grade levels. The reading part is being given about 2 grade levels above 3rd grade level. So we're expecting a kid who's right at 3rd grade level to read at a 5th grade level and be able to answer questions at a 5th grade level, and that freaks them out, and then they don't pass the test. So right now, these tests are a mess. They're not valid. They've been proven not to be valid. So we can talk about it, we can push, and we can try. But what we need to focus on is educating our kids better. Is focusing on making sure every school around here gets the right funding so that every teacher has what they need to educate their children. They need the kids to have recess. The test scores, you can actually correlate them back to zip codes. So if you're in a poor zip code, you're way more likely to have low test scores, which is what happens in Leesburg. So, so it's just the way of, it's like a game. So we need to give the schools the resources they need equitably. And those schools, those low 300 schools, those children deserve recess. They deserve band, they deserve art. They don't not deserve anything that the kids at the rich schools deserve. So that's my take on it. I'm tired I'm frustrated by the inequities that I see. And that's why I took the recess fight to the state level, because we weren't getting any action at the county level. And that's something simple. But that's something that I can, we can push the recess thing, or we can just fix it at the state level, at the county level, and then we can try and work on fixing the testing issue, which really is an inequality issue at the state level.
Thank you. You could also touch on school options.
School options. So school options, as in charters?
School option, if that was approved.
So it has been approved.
So how would you implement if you were elected to the school board, how would you work with the school board to ensure that when we have school options, that all of our schools are equally funded? Because like you just said, depending on the zip code that you're living in,
Right.
the schools and
I do think that schools with some of the schools that have lower socioeconomic numbers do need some more wraparound resources, and we do need to help those schools and those students. Things like bringing in the Boys and Girls Club into the school so that they can help. I think that's one of the solutions. I don't think I have all the answers by any means, and I think going to the community and trying to get their input would be a really good. I don't claim to have every single answer, but I would say that would be one solution.
There's a big issue that's going on in Christie. She and her group have gone to Tallahassee and Lafayette for recess and opt out. So, and all those are good things. So, but when we talk about opting out of the test, there are so many parents that don't know about how to opt out. They don't know what they should be doing with their kids. So when we look at the number of students who will fail these state assessments, again, the minority students are the ones that we have to pay particular close attention to, because those are the students that will suffer the most. So with the assessments and the opt-out. The question about the school choice. What will happen with school choice? And I believe that parents should have control and options over their kids' education. So, and if they want to move their students to another school, I'm okay with that. But the problem lies in schools like Leesburg High School, Beverly Shores Elementary, Leesburg Elementary, where the schools are already struggling. So, and when you begin to remove the top tier, top percentile of those students from those schools, and they go to the Tavares Elementary and Lost Lake Elementary, and all the schools that are performing well already. So you shift the highly performing students to those schools. What happened with that, those schools become A schools. And Leesburg Elementary and Leesburg High School in Beverly Shores become F schools. So the A schools get rewarded from the state with more dollars. The F schools struggles and suffers because they have less funding. So then again, the minority students that we're talking about, the kids that we want to have the opportunity to be successful, they get less funding, they have less option for arts, they have less option for time for the recess and things that she's talking about. So our kids really suffer behind that. So, and with the suffering and the struggling of the schools, that means that your city is going to struggle. That means that your economy is going to struggle. Who want to move a business to a school, a city who has 3 F schools and 2 D schools and a C school? It's not good for economic development. So we talk all we want to about developing economics and bringing businesses in. You're not going to put your kids in a struggling school. So if your kids are at an A school, would you move to Leesburg High School? Would you move to Beverly Shores? So the way that we solve that is we look at the programs at Leesburg High School. Someone mentioned before about the IB program. Not sure that I'm sold on IB, but we can do make Leesburg High School a performing arts school. So now you bring in the best programs, and then you bring kids with all of those programs to Leesburg High School, and then it becomes equitable, and you have those resources that will be placed in those schools too. So thank you very much.
Everyone can look at their responses.
Now you tell us. The one thing that I have learned over this process and over the last years is that we do not have fair, there's really not a lot of fairness in our schools. When you look at the resources, when you look at the different schools, you've got some schools that every student has an iPad, and then you have some schools that up until last year had chalkboards in their classrooms. So there's not a lot of fairness there. But the one way that I think when it comes to school choice, I think we have to make sure that every single one of our schools has something that will draw in students. Actually, Pernell just mentioned the possibility of a fine arts school, something different that differentiates the school, that brings them in. Those kind of things would be important. The other thing is, and this is something that we can do, is to make sure that we attract the best teachers. Because it doesn't matter what you have. If you have a good teacher, it does not matter what kind of electronics you have or anything like that, those students will benefit from that teacher. And I think even putting an incentive in place in the schools that maybe are F and D schools, that there's a little extra pay for a teacher if they go to one of those schools, so that it encourages some of our best teachers, and it allows the principals to be able to choose from the cream of the crop to be in those schools to help bring those grades up in those schools. So that would be my solutions, I think, and answers to those 2 questions.
Thank you.
The question is limited to school choice and how it would be implemented and equitable, correct? Okay. Like you said, school choice is in place now. It was, your school boundaries were eviscerated in this last legislative session, so you can send your kids anywhere you want in the state now. I don't judge anyone who wants to take their children and put them in a different school. I call that doing what's best for your kids, and I call that parenting. That's what you should do. But I look at each one of those as an opportunity to find out what can we do better to make sure that the next people don't need, that they feel the need to take their kids to another school. The equity, though, this is where it comes back to the budgeting idea that I have. And let me just start by saying, even if it's a 5% impact, that's a $27.7 million pot of money. And when teachers are looking for reams of paper and dots of tissue, trust me, we can solve a lot of problems with $27.7 million. My vision of how that would be implemented, though, is I would have the principals come in and before the board and say, here's what we want, in addition to what our minimums are. So we have to have a certain number of teacher allocations, for example. So you have to have that amount of money. So you start there. Anything over and beyond that, I want to add an arts program. This principal wants to add an extra teacher aide. Come before the board, justify the reasons why you want those resources, and let the schools determine where the resources need to be, and that's where your equity will kind of shake itself out. And that way we know that our resources now are fitting the actual needs that are in the schools. So that's how I would make it more equitable.
You want to give some order or same order?
I would run it as a business, basically. The district, it's a company, it's a corporation, and each school is a franchise. As a result of that, you basically have your CEO, which is your superintendent, and each one of your principals are your general manager for each one of those schools. And every school should get the same resources so that everyone can benefit, regardless of where you live, what your socioeconomic areas are, so that everyone can prosper and enjoy the same thing. When you have a franchise, your product comes out the same at the end of the day. Well, it needs to be the same way with our schools. The mission is for all the schools in the district, for all the children in the district, and the goals are for all the children in the district. It should not be by zip codes. Thank you.
The legislation that was passed at the end of the last session was called the train wreck, and that was because the bill started with 64 pages in the morning. By the afternoon it was 136 pages, and one of the things that got put through was the school choice and being able to go over our state boundaries. The person who fostered that bill said he had no idea what that meant. So if that bill can be passed in the last legislative session, it can be unpassed in the next legislative session. But we need to elect people to the state legislature who know what they're doing in education, who aren't on the boards of private charter school companies who want to turn the state of Florida into private charter schools. We need to get those people out of Tallahassee and people in there who know what they're doing, for starters. Then we can look at each of our public schools, find out what's best for that area, service that area, make some of the schools in the communities that are really poor and depressed, make those community schools where they provide other services besides just education. Turn those schools back into the center of that community. Get those parents involved, get the parents there. Beverly Shores is crawling its way up. Leesburg Elementary is clawing its way up. They are making progress, and we need to help those schools continue to make progress.
Well, along with that, in 17-18 school year, in sports, in your high school levels, if a person wants to play football at a very successful program, they can move over and start playing football. And then if they want to play basketball somewhere else that's successful, they can transfer over also to that school, as long as they have not started playing basketball or doing any type of conditioning, they can move to that school. So that's a problem there in your high schools with your competitive sports there. So therefore, we need to look at the schools and make them competitive also to retain those students, not lose those students to some other school that says, hey, we've got an A school. Well, we're going to be an A school. You stay here and you get the highly qualified teachers. And how do you get that? The funding there, you provide it equally all the way around. But at the same time, what's happened is this school here says, hey, did you know they got such and such and we didn't get that? Well, that's a problem. And that's, I feel this is what this question is about. How do we make this equal all the way around? You don't get it. When I left City Council at Tavares, they were looking at a $60,000 pay increase for the city administrator. The employees were scheduled to get a 2% pay raise that would start the 7th month of that calendar year. I voted against it in the general session, and he wanted a one-on-one. He says, well, what about this don't you like? I said, do the regular employees get it? No, you don't get it. Well, what about this one? Do they get it? No, you don't get it. And he said, well, what? I said, you don't get it. If they don't get it, you don't get it. So if this school can't have it, you can't have it either. We got to make it where it's plausible for everybody and not just for a certain select individuals. Just because they've got somebody that the superintendent likes. It's not that way. It needs to be, when we hire a superintendent, we need to hire somebody that comes in that doesn't have a mindset that already has people picked out who's going to be their pet peeves, but they're going to treat everybody equally.
Amen.
Now, usually I would ask you to go ahead and take your seats, but we have one question in particular of the full school board, and so we're going to allow the question to be asked.
First question. Have you ever heard of Ben Frog the snakes?
What?
Ben Frog the snakes.
Ben Frog.
In other What chance do they have?